Hello and welcome. This is Japan, and we are going over the best moments so far this year. I know we're only in October, but October is fast approaching to be done. It's crazy. So when we get these last 2 months, there's a lot that can go on. So I kind of wanted to jump into this and talk about all the moments. Basically, this feels like there's a bunch of different stuff that happened all over the place. So we'll talk about it. I'm thinking I'm gonna base it off of shock value and how great it was. So there might be stuff like I guess the middle section will be like just shocking, but I don't know if it was good or not. I think that's a good thing because I feel like there's some moments in here that it was shocking. I don't know. I really don't know if it was good or bad. And then S tier and A tier being good, C and D being not so great. So we start off with a very strong one. This was John Cena turning on Cody Rhodes, turning heel. This set up a lot. Love or hate the heel turn for John Cena. I do feel like this moment was amazing. I feel like obviously there could have been some possibilities of other stuff happening that would have felt a little bit better, but like with the booking and stuff. But I still think this was a great moment. I'm gonna have to put this up in S tier. I think it was chef's kiss of it. Next up, we talk about kind of a shocker. It was one Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble, which I guess we talk about that. So I guess we'll just talk about him beating Gunther. I don't think it was the right call. I mean, I'm not a big Gunther fan, and I like Jey Uso a lot. I just don't think this was the right call. I don't think he should have run the Royal Rumble and got to it. I think they could have got him a title reign a little bit later on, and maybe been the one that Seth Rollins would have cashed in on if that's who. I know they wanted to do CM Punk, but I feel like Punk should have had a longer reign in between that, and maybe Jay take the title off of him. I don't know. They really just could have done something different. I feel like his title reign didn't have much of anything, had no substance to it. So seeing it in hindsight just kind of sucked. I love that Jay got the opportunity to win, but please just let this be the only one until they really figure out what they want to do with him. Like I want a full decision that they can do. So I guess I put this in C. I don't think it's the worst thing because it could. I still glad that he won. Beating Gunther was still a great moment, but the build up was way better than the match, and I think it just a lot of stuff got lost into this. Then we'll talk about Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble. Now, this was also really shocking at the time. I mean, with heavily favorites like John Cena and CM Punk, it was kind of shocking that Jay was going to go in there. I still believe that Jay should have been the one that won the Elimination Chamber. I know that the Elimination Chamber also ended up being very shocking too, but man, it was kind of crazy that he wins it because he's not going to pick Cody. So, like, that kind of really just wrote them into a weird box. So, I didn't particularly think Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble was a good idea. I'm glad he did, to a certain extent for his own, like, thing, but to me, it just wasn't it. Then we get to WrestleMania, the triple threat between Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk, and Paul Heyman betraying both CM Punk and Roman Reigns for Seth Rollins. Now, that moment in hindsight, I can't. I'm trying not to make it work with hindsight because, like, now that the division has busted up and the whole thing was kind of really just pointless and crazy and just all of that, it just ended up not working out. But this moment at the time was just amazing. It was so crazy and it just worked out so well. So I'm about to put up an A. It was a great moment. Then this is Becky turning on Lyra after their 1 day title tag team title run, and she just felt like Lyra did it. I do like Becky's heel turn, and I like the character that she's been working on. It's like a little bit of like what people believe that she is behind the scenes, like being Becky Hogan, and then half being like how Kevin Owens' character was last year, where he was just kind of a little bit delusional and everything else. So I feel like there was a little bit of mix between that, and that character ended up being good. But this moment just kind of lost it for me. It shouldn't have been the night after WrestleMania. They should have had a little bit of like a build because like when she just betrayed her right off the bat and Bailey being gone, it felt like, yeah, it made sense that it could have been Becky, and they just really didn't really build anything around it. I felt like it was kind of a drop ball. Now, their feud after this, they ended up really getting into and making it work. So the feud itself was definitely top tier. But this moment at least wasn't that great. So I'll put it up in C because the feud definitely helped it. Then we get Seth Rollins. He ended up, this is when Braun Breaker joined him. This was so amazing when it happened, and I had such high hopes for this entire group that it just made it sad that this happened. So I'm gonna put up an A. It was still a great moment. Then we just had the recent moment of Braun Breaker turning on Seth Rollins and them going out on their own. I felt like the injury is obviously the reason why all this has happened, so it's kind of unfortunate because it just didn't need to happen this way and it didn't need to happen this fast. So unfortunately, it felt as rushed as it actually was. So that's the only thing that I will say that I really hated about, honestly, this whole entire, pretty much everything that came from the Vision, because it just really never worked the way that it should have because of all this outside stuff. So it was kind of unfortunate. So being shocking, it wasn't really that shocking to me. So I guess I'd put it in C. Like, it was still a great moment. It's going to be iconic for the year, but it wasn't anything like we knew it was going to happen because of the injury. Next up, we had Jace beating Stephanie for the NXT title. This was very shocking. I didn't think anybody really thought this was going to happen. Obviously, it was just because Stephanie was being moved to the main roster and they needed somebody, but she's still champion to this day. So it's, to a certain extent, it's worked out, and hopefully they could have made a star out of Jace. Was time still can tell. I think her wrestling and mics are getting way better. So I just really hope they can give her a little bit more time with this title, if that's what they're planning on doing, until she drops it to a bigger star and then possibly goes to the main roster, because that's got to be the next step when she loses this title. She cannot just stay in NXT after this, or that's pretty much it. So I would put shocking. I wouldn't say it's good or bad because there's a lot that could happen from it. You never know. Next up, we had Dominic Mysterio winning the AAA title. This was a great moment. This is like, when you think about like a lot of things coming to fruition, is Dominic's character. Obviously, winning the IC title was really big, but winning this was just a good moment to show that like the international crowd was absolutely in love with him, and like this has been something that they can continuously market and go from. So he'll be a star from years and years to come. So this was great. I'm gonna put it up an A. I don't know if I'd put it quite into S tier because we still got to see what he does with this title. He's gonna defend it like another time, so that make two defenses. He hasn't defended it or been on a lot of shows, but I'm still, still excited to see what happens. Next up is when TNA invaded NXT. This was something that they were building up. I do hope we get more. It just kind of went to the showdown, and I guess that's it to a certain extent. I feel like they could have really milked this a little bit longer. And I know we'll see some more TNA people and all that, but I found that it could have been better. So it was shocking, but I don't know if it was good or not because it really didn't really do anything. Ricky Saints, or Ricky Starks at the time, coming to NXT. It was pretty shocking. Like a lot of people didn't know if this was gonna happen because it wasn't like they thought he was going to be released from his contract, or at least be able to go out there. And when I think he showed up, I think the crowd really was into it too. So I think it's definitely shocking. I wouldn't say if it's like good or bad, like as being like a great moment, because it's like right there in the middle. Like it was great. We'll see what happens with him only being here like within the year. Same thing with Blake Monroe. She came up here so hot, coming off of being AEW champion and stuff. They still haven't quite figured out what they're doing with her, and I guess we'll see. It's fairly new, so it can't be too bad. But it's one of those things where you got to figure it out when you got to figure it out, I guess. So we'll put it up here too in the shocking. Next up is Rusev returning. Honestly, this is one of those returns that nothing against Rusev. It's just his character or anything really isn't going for me, and it really doesn't add anything to the whole organization as being like, this is crazy, we need this guy, he's gonna do this. It's just he's a monster, and the problem with a monster type thing is once they put him in that title picture, if he doesn't win the title, which he has not so far in the Intercontinental thing, it kind of just derails him. He needs to have like those constant wins to look like he's the toughest guy out there. And if he just kind of loses and it's kind of like that, then that's pretty much all you can do with him. It's just he's kind of dead after that. So this whole thing, I don't think it's worked out at all. So I'll put him down in D. AJ Lee returning is the best return I think ever to almost to maybe CM Punk was pretty high up there because it was just like that. I mean, we kind of figured AJ Lee would return once CM Punk did. It took a couple years, so yeah, this was shocking but great, and the feud that they had afterwards was great. And I wish hopefully she comes back. And it kind of sucks that she's just been kind of off TV. Maybe she needed a little bit more time to recover after that first match, but yeah, I don't know. Next up is Stacks turning on Tony D'Angelo. Honestly, they did nothing with this. Like, Stacks won the Heritage Cup, turned on him, and all this stuff. Heritage Cup gone. Stacks is basically not used for much. I know he has a title match tomorrow when I'm filming this for the X Division title. Highly doubt he's being Slater, but none of this was worth it. I mean, we kind of all knew Stacks was the person that's going to be turning on him, and they've done nothing with Tony D'Angelo, so none of it's good. Eldrade, I definitely do feel like it was shocking that they released him, but it seems like there was a lot of stuff that was going in and out of there. But they weren't really using him to what I think like they could have used him to, and I didn't think they had much plans for him either. So I'll put him down in D. Next up is Karrion Kross being released. Honestly, was very shocking to me. I just really didn't expect it because of the push they were giving him at the time and the way that he was selling merch and doing so much stuff. It just didn't really make sense to release him when he was really getting hot again. So I'm gonna put this up as shocking. It was just really shocking. I still can't believe it to this day. Next up is Joe Hendry returning, not returning, but like having his WrestleMania moment against Randy Orton, being the mystery opponent. There were so many people that the mystery opponent could have been that I was like really, really excited for possibly happening. That Joe Hendry was a little bit of a letdown. Not nothing against him, but it was just like when you have an idea of other stuff and that's not the idea, it gets a little bit harder to like figure out what you're doing with it. So I've kind of hated that it wasn't somebody else, but I think overall it was still pretty shocking. So I wouldn't put shocking, neither good or bad. Next up is Naomi announcing her pregnancy and having to relinquish the belt. Now that we've seen both titles having to be relinquished from both Money in the Bank winners, it kind of just hits different that kind of really sucks. And this one especially sucked because I feel like they had a lot for her planned because Bianca was going to come back, Jade Cargill. I think they really were going to like swap some things up and she was going to do a lot of stuff. And I think Tiffany was going to go to Raw where she would have had fresh new feuds and done a lot of different things. I think they really were going to swap them at some point. And I think there could have been a lot of stuff that came from this, but it just kind of sucked. I guess like overall in moments, I put it up there. Everybody's happy that she is pregnant and all that, but I don't think I'd put it in S tier because I think it's just we have to mourn what was lost, unfortunately. Next up is Seth Rollins cashing in on CM Punk at SummerSlam, where he had been showing that he was injured the entire time and then threw down the stuff and went out there and got it. It's an iconic moment. It was just crazy. Unfortunately, the karma of it coming back to Seth Rollins is absolutely horrible. It kind of just sucked because this is such an iconic moment, but it's gonna get drilled, just drowned out because really nothing came from it, unfortunately. So I'll put it up as still an S tier. I was shocked as hell. Naomi cashing in and winning the title. It was less shocking. It really did feel like Naomi was going to have a good opportunity to. They definitely were hinting at her going after Tiffany Stratton, so it was a little bit more shocking that she went after Io and Ripley and Rhea Ripley in that match. But I still think it was a really iconic moment that she was able to get down there and get it. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I really feel like we have to mourn what was lost from all of this because there could have been a lot more stuff. So I'll put this one up in A. Uh, Next up is almost one of the most recent moments. It was Ilya Dragunov coming back from 13 months on the shelf to win the U.S. title off of Sami Zayn in this open challenge thing. I really hope they keep the open challenge for Dragunov because I think he could put on absolute bangers and absolutely save SmackDown as a show, because I think he could do the banger part of things and not have like, oh, it's going to be a comeback like Sammy was doing. Sammy still had a great run, but this is completely different when you're seeing somebody like Ilya Dragunov going out there and doing crazy stuff. So, yeah, I'm gonna put this up in S tier. It was a great moment. I think it's the first of many championships for him if he can stay healthy. Next up is R-Truth. This is when he got released and the people brought him back. They pretended it was a work basically, and like he came back and he tagged John Cena. I thought it was a shocking moment, but I don't know if I would say it's good or bad because again they haven't used him really since then, and it kind of sucks. But I don't know. Then we had Alexa Bliss coming back at the Royal Rumble. It was, a really good moment. I was really glad to see her back. I'll put her up an A. I mean, I think we assumed that she might be back this year. Like, it was just like, if she's not back this year, she's probably not coming back ever. So it wasn't completely shocking this year in that Royal Rumble, but it was still really good to see her. Next up is Brock Lesnar coming back. This whole thing was pointless and dumb. Put it down in D. Next up uh, is it Malachi Black? No, Malachi Black's his AEW name, so Aleister Black in WWE. Honestly, I feel like they've kind of been 50-50 on to what they do with him. I do like his feud with Damian Priest. It's just taken quite a long time. And now that they've paired him up with his real life wife, Zelina Vega, hopefully something comes from this because at least it gives them something different. It almost feels like they're remaking, Karrion Kross and Scarlett to a certain extent, with the spooky vibes and stuff. And maybe to a certain extent they're doing that and just trying to elevate it, I guess. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely something here that hopefully they can work on it, but him coming back was cool and like shocking, but I don't think I would say it's like good or bad yet. Then we got Tonga Loa, not Tonga, this is Tali Tonga coming, I wouldn't say coming back, but debuting. It was an interesting moment, but it was just like cool, and then it was like you kind of were happy about it, and then like they never did anything with it. So I'll put it down in D. Then we will talk about the NXT TNA partnership. Honestly, it's been a really good partnership. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of stupid stuff that's came from it, but I think overall it's been a good partnership. I'd put it up in A. I think there's definitely some time and stuff that they can hammer out over the next couple years, but hopefully they can because it's interesting to see the talent and the line crossing and people being on multiple shows, multiple PLEs. It's crazy to see so many people extra getting opportunities where you probably wouldn't get them in WWE. And then of course the same thing with the WWE and the AAA promotion that they bought out and have been working with. It's a very fun thing. A lot of new matches and new crazy stuff and has history with a lot of WWE luchas like Rey Mysterio and Penta, so they can go back. Obviously, Dominic Mysterio's been big over there, El Grande Americano. Like everything that they've been doing with this has worked out really well, and a lot of the PLEs where they have multiple WWE people in it have worked out really well. So I'm gonna put this up on S tier. I think this partnership's worked out a lot better than the TNA one, but it's also they own it, so it makes it a lot easier. Then we had Jacob Fatu beating Solo Sikoa for the U.S. title. I believe this is the moment. Or no, this is him turning on Solo at the Money in the Bank. Honestly, it was a build-up that we knew was going to happen, so it wasn't super shocking. So I'll put it up in C. I mean, we kind of knew eventually this was going to happen. It wasn't completely shocking, but at least it was good. Next up, CM Punk coming down as John Cena in the Dr. Punkonomics, or Punk Life, all the stuff that he was doing. It was very jokey and honestly, it was just fun. I don't know. It was just kind of a fun thing. I'll put it in B or A, sorry. Then we had this was JC Mateo debuting at this was Bad Blood, I think, because I went there. Yeah, this was Bad Blood and him taking LA Knight out and the rest of the Fatal Four Way thing to help. I was at the time to help Jacob Fatu retain, and the help with Solo wanted to help him out. Honestly, I was really excited about this. I remember seeing a lot of like JC Mateo matches or Jeff Cobb matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling, so I was really excited for what this they could do. But so far in his first year here, it's been just awful. I don't think they've done anything with him, so I'm gonna put it down there. I think at the moment it would have been better, but ended up being nothing. Next up is when Becky Lynch joined the Vision and helped CM Punk, or helped Seth Rollins retain against CM Punk in that Fatal 4-Way. It was a pretty shocking moment. Like, we kind of thought there would be somebody added, and Becky is like an obvious choice, but they ended up not doing that. We thought in the beginning, and then they ended up doing it at the end. Again, it's just not knowing what could have happened with them being in the group. I'll put them up in A. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. John Cena winning his 17th. Honestly, depending on how you feel about his heel run, you're probably not going to like this. I personally thought it was a good touch. I felt like he deserved to get the record at some point, and I think they got it out of the way in the beginning so they could kind of set up the remainder to kind of just have a little bit of stuff that he wanted to do and people he wanted to face and do stuff like that. And I think it ended up working out. We're still only down to 4 appearances, so it's unfortunate, but I think this moment is pretty iconic for the year. So S tier. Next up would be WWE and Netflix debuting. We've almost gotten to a year from it. Honestly, I've loved the Netflix part because also the other shows are on there, and I use the VPN and get to watch all the shows in one spot. Sometimes the overall Netflix app and shit like that doesn't work great, but that's less about the WWE partnership. But I'm glad it happened. I am. I guess I'd put it up in A. Like, it's a good thing that happened. I just don't really know what to put. It's a lot better than WWE and ESPN, which surprisingly is not on this list. Next up was Trick Williams winning the TNA championship. It was definitely shocking when it happened because we didn't know if NXT and TNA were gonna like swap titles at any point or any of that type of stuff. But this was like a big thing, like, oh, I guess they are. And it's an iconic thing for Trick Williams that he's gonna have that really hopefully will give him this big boost. I think they built Trick Williams up way better than they built up Carmelo going into him getting called up. So I think when Trick does, I think he's gonna be really pushed to the moon because I think they've really set him up very nicely. So I put this up as a pretty iconic moment. I put it up in A. Then we saw the Hardys just kind of recently winning the NXT tag team titles against Dark State. Honestly, the Hardys are an iconic tag team. One of my favorites growing up. I absolutely love them. But this was really not it. It was. I couldn't even say if it's shocking. I guess I'd put it in C. Like, it definitely is interesting that they won, but like, they're just a little too old to be doing that type of stuff. Like, I think it's fine if they want to continue to wrestle, but putting them in the title aspect, especially on 2 brands now, is kind of crazy. And now Dark State has a rematch at Halloween Havoc, depending on when this comes out. But I don't think it will be anything. I think that's just going to be another match and kind of a little bit of a stinker. But I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, those are the iconic moments so far this year. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of missed stuff, but overall pretty good. But until next time, this has been Japan. Bye, guys.